clawing across the ground.
All right, welcome everybody to Forging Brains podcast. Today we got a pretty cool guest. It goes by Andrew Wells. Most of us probably know him as just Wells. You know, it's like there's a lot of Andrews in the world, but there's only one Wells. But we're happy to have Andrew on here. Andrew's been a competitor with the WCB. He's been on the AFT, and he is just a well-educated guy. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us.
Yeah, Patrick would always say I was the example of the difference between educated and smart. So
I would agree with him.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd agree with that.
I'm pretty educated, not always that smart, but that's life.
Well, I'm neither.
Oh man, I don't know. I feel pretty uneducated most of the time, and I always envy guys like you that are well educated, just on the history of America and just the general things that you should know from school. I think that's pretty cool stuff to know in the most part.
Yeah, I don't I've always liked books and thought school is I didn't like school in high school and middle school and that, but I don't. For whatever reason, that type of information sticks with me,
What do you kind of like to read? What kind of book do you go towards?
Everything, man. I've usually got 3 going at once, and it'll be something fiction, something kind of informative nonfiction, and then something historical. I got way into military history stuff for a while. I like reading kind of thriller novels now that I used to probably would have thought were trash and, not sophisticated, but now I like to read them. I can read them fast, I find that I want to be entertained.
Did you do well in school? Did you do well in middle school and high school?
Yeah, in certain subjects. I've always struggled with math and science I was good with, because science is reading comprehension and memorization, But I just get so bored in math. What I was supposed to be learning, taking in info, I just would zone out, I get busted reading a magazine or a book or something during math class. And
that's complete opposite for me.
Yeah. My whole life would be different if I were better with numbers, but I had to go to tutoring before school the whole way through high school and everything and then my degrees in college, when I had math classes, I had to hire a guy to help me,
Damn.
So.
Would not have guessed that.
Well, I could have done it on my own, but I never wanted to just kind of do it, I wanted to try to understand it as best I could, so.
Yeah, you weren't trying to just get by on it then. If you were going through the class, you might as well get your worth out of it.
Yeah, especially not in college. I had a rough first semester going in there and being on my own and, being away from the small town I grew up in and all that. But then I had a 4.0 the whole time after that.
Damn, that's pretty cool, man.
What are your degrees in from college then?
Oh, nothing.
Or where?
I wanted to, when I went down
there,
there,
to college?
I went to this school called Samford University. It's in Birmingham, Alabama. It's a little private school. And I wanted to be a scientist. I was way into backpacking and hiking around and being in the woods and stuff. And I don't know, I wanted to be able to look into the woods and know what everything I saw was,
Yeah.
And I got down there and I just struggled really bad in chemistry. It's math on steroids, and it started becoming kind of clear I wasn't going to make a career as a scientist, but I still wanted to study some biology, so I kept that major. And then the college I was going to was a liberal arts college, so they wanted you to be super well-rounded. So to get a degree, you had to have 20 credits outside of your major in other classes. Mm-hmm. And another major is 24 credits, so it's only one more class. And so I studied English because I kind of hit that spot where it's all right, I need to do something I can get good grades in, or else this is just going to be a total struggle. And I loved English. I loved books. I loved those professors. And, so I studied that. And then it's just one of those things where my heroes are always teachers and people who wrote books and had ideas and that kind of thing. So, you know.
That kind of explains a lot, you know, as far as like when you say you hired a tutor so that you could understand it better and become better. I think that kind of transpires or into like what you've done as far as like horseshoeing goes. You know, whenever you've tried to make like a team or whatever, that kind of is a good example of how you got to be where you got to be, you know, from making WCB, AFT, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Right, wrong, or otherwise, you're like, okay, there's the best guy. I'm going to work up the courage to go ask him for help.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but
So
it's
what
probably
changed your
a little
mind?
bit easier. Like, they're more acceptable probably to give you the help like at WCB compared to it like in school. It's probably pretty cut and dry. They're like, I'll give you the help, but it's going to cost you money. We're like, guys at WCB are like pretty generally like, yeah, just come along. Like,
yeah, it's fortunate that if you seem like you really, you know what I mean? Like if you're doing the requisite things to make use of the knowledge, you're not going to waste their time. People are super willing to teach you. And like, I don't know. It's always like, I just have always like craved that dynamic of like, hey, I'll do anything I can to make you okay with teaching me, you know? And like, once I have the info, I will use it in a way that makes you proud that you showed me, you know? And, at least I try to. That's the goal, you know?
was that something that came on in college, or was that something that you had in high school too? Or was like, or that like once you were paying for classes, or like cooler teachers maybe too that you were wanting to like make happy?
Yeah. Yeah. That like high school was all right, you know, and I got along with some teachers there, but you just are a kid and you hate the place that you're living and you kind of don't fit in, and it's not, you know, it just ain't where you want to be. And then you kind of get somewhere you like to be, and you like,
Because you had a choice to be able to go there.
yeah. And college was the first time that I ever like super applied myself to school, and everything started going good. Like, I'm leading discussions. I'm getting the awards. I'm like getting the pats on the back and that positive affirmation, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, if I work really, really hard and dedicate myself to this, like the things in front of me appear, you know, like I could, at some point you got to make yourself proud of yourself a couple times, you know, and show yourself that you have that ability. And like all of us know guys who never did that. And that's the flavor of their life once they're older, you know, that like,
No,
they never
dude, I
proved
think
to
that
themselves
is-
that they could do it.
That's such a freaking like great point that you like once you realize it's not that far away, that it's like it's within arm's reach. Like really, really, I was thinking that the other day that like I randomly like to choose different things I'm going to do in my life. I'm like, well, I'm just going to go tackle that now. But it's like, this thing is like, it wasn't until after horseshoeing taught me that I was like, you can just stay in the lab and get it done. And like the same thing is like, so it sounds like maybe that's what like college, like it showed you that like, man, just your efforts will be rewarded pretty shortly and you can be one of these top people. Like it's not impossible.
Yeah. That's a good feeling. You're like, okay, it's not always just going to be something I have to sit here and watch other people have or whatever. And but you know, college is one of them deals. Like a lot of people are like me, where their everyday life afterward isn't making use of the credentials or whatever it was that they gained while they were in college. But that cliche thing of like, you learned how to think, you learned how to learn, all that crap. Like, the stuff's cliche because it's pretty true, you know. But it doesn't have to be college. Like anything that you say, all right, I'll play ball. Like the task is in front of me, I'll dedicate myself to it and see it through. Like that teaches you stuff, you know. That was what it was for me, you know. And
so how long were you in college total?
Well, I got undergrad degree, and then I went and got a master's degree at the University of Iowa. And that was a funny deal. Like, my master's degree's in creative writing, like poetry writing. And it's a master's of fine arts degree. It's not like some rigorous academic master's, you know, like a master's in engineering or some shit. But I went to the Iowa Writers Workshop, which, like, you know, nobody cares about that kind of stuff unless they care about it. But it's a really prestigious program, and not many people get in relative to how many apply. And college was coming to a close, and I didn't really have a good plan, but I'd been doing a lot of writing, and I had a couple professors that were like, apply to these things, and they're fully funded. If you get in, it won't cost you anything. You can go work on this and, you know, be in that world and see what it leads to, kind of thing. And it's a master's degree, so if you want to get a PhD, it's like a step along the way, you know. And because, you know, being a professor seemed like something I could do. Like, you just are a professional nerd, you know. And I applied and got into the writer's workshop, and I got into this school in New York too that was kind of a cool program, and that was funny. I went to New York City, and then I got on the train at like Grand Central Station and rode it up to upstate New York a little ways for this interview. And like, I'm from Alabama, and like I had traveled the world some by then and been around, but like, you know, you're still from Alabama, and like if you're going to something important, you freaking wear the best clothes you got, you know. So I get off the train in upstate New York in a full suit, like the whole works, you know.
Yeah.
And I go up to the campus at this art school, and everybody's wearing like T-shirts and jeans and stuff for their interview, and I was like, oh shit.
Might overdress a little bit.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. But
Were they impressed?
yeah, it was crazy. My interview up there was with a guy who's a writer, but his dad's a really, really famous writer. And then this lady who I had written part of my senior thesis in my undergrad on. Like, I studied this lady and her work extensively, and here I am sitting across from her, and she's like, "Do you always dress this beautifully?" And I was like, you know, I didn't say it, but in my mind, I'm like, is she talking shit? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, is that a sincere question? And I was like, well, I'm from Alabama, and if you're going to do something like this is how you dress. Like, I didn't really understand the assignment.
It's important.
She just was like, okay. She's like, I didn't know. She was really asking, like, is this kind of your thing? Like, do you dress like this? Or, because, you know, it's art school. Everybody's got kind of a thing. But I was like, no, I'm deeply embarrassed that I wore this, and I get it now, you know. But I did end up going there. I went to Iowa, and you got me on this podcast. You get long stories. I don't have short stories.
That's
No, it's
perfectly
perfect,
fine, dude.
yeah, it's great.
We can go for 5 hours if you want.
Going to Iowa was pretty cool. Like, it's always cool to go to a big deal program, I guess. It's not, you know, unless you really do something or don't handle it in a good way, it's not going to be a terrible experience. But I met a lot of cool people. A lot of people, like, you know, whenever we go to the airport, I go in the freaking bookstore to buy a bottle of water, and one of my buddy's books is sitting on the shelf. Like, I had some really successful writers that I know from going to that program, but I'm not one of them. But
So why did you choose Iowa over New York?
oh man, Ego. It was a more prestigious program. The funding was better. It was a full residency program. The one in New York was set up so you could, kind of like Chris Gregory's long shoeing school program used to be. You go there for a while, you're deeply concentrated in this academic setting, and then you disappear and go do your work for a while and come back and go and come back and go.
Okay.
It's like that. And I was a 21-year-old kid at the time, and like that structure of the other program was a little more appealing too. And then the college town of Iowa City, like, it was a little more comfortable to me than trying to wrestle with New York. You know, me and the big, like, I'm not scared of cities, and I never really was, but I was also like pretty, you know, 21-year-old shy dude, so it would have been tough in New York. No telling what I would have got into.
New York would be tough for any of us, really.
Yeah. Iowa was good. That's where I met, you know, that's how I ended up on the path to, like, being a farrier, oddly, but, you know, it's easy to pick up drinking real bad in an MFA program, too, so I picked that up along the way. But
I'm guilty of it from college, too.
yeah. But when I was going to Iowa, it's just a 2-year deal, 2-year master's, so the summer in between the 2 years is kind of a pivotal thing for everyone. I think how you spend it, you know, and made friends with this guy a year ahead of me, and he's like, I got a job for you. He's like, a really good friend of mine married into this family, and they own a dude ranch in Colorado. He's like, that's the perfect job for you. I'll call him, and I'll tell him you're going to interview and all this. So he gives me the hookup with that, and I talked to the guy on the phone. I told this story before, but the dude wants a maintenance man, which is the fact that he's talking to me is laughable, you know. And he's asking me if I know how to do all this shit. And I'm just like, oh yeah, absolutely, you know. And I got a game plan to like read in a book how to do all this shit, and I'll know, and then I'll just go do it. You know?
Oh shit!
And he asked me if I knew how to weld, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been welding all my life, you know, no problem. And I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And so I get off the phone with that guy. He's like, well, you're hired. You know, you're in. It's good to go. Like, Justin wouldn't recommend you if you weren't good to go. So, you know, come on. And I was dating this girl at the time. Her name's Haley Thompson, and her dad's name's Blaine Thompson. He's a certified journeyman farrier in Parnell, Iowa. And I was like, hey, your dad, he does stuff with metal, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, so he knows how to weld. And she's like, duh, you know. Like, you think he can show me how to weld? I told this guy I know how to weld, and I don't. So like, she drives me out there, and we roll up, and he had like a Purdy built type shoeing trailer, and it's open, and he'd been making shoes in it, like little plain stamp shoes to shoe Arab horses with. And I'm eyeballing that, like, holy crap! Like, I didn't even, you know how, I don't know if you guys can remember seeing farrier stuff when you'd never seen farrier stuff before. It's like,
Oh yeah.
when you're into just shit, like you're into processes and into, you know, little tools and those kinds of things, it catches your eye. It's like, holy crap, look at all that. Look at all that stuff that could only serve one purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he showed me how to run a wire welder and let me practice for a while. And then I like wanted to bug him about the shoeing trailer, but he's kind of like, all right, kid, like, I showed you how to wire weld and you've wasted enough of my spool, so get out of here, kind of thing. And that girl kept telling me, like, you should be a farrier. Like, I think that you got that kind of attitude. You should be a farrier. You should be a farrier. And I'm like, whatever. Like, you know, I don't even know how to do anything with my hands, so how could I ever be a farrier?
Yeah.
We go work on that dude ranch, and that summer went good. I got to be friends with the farrier there, and like, that farrier that's shoeing for the dude ranch, he rolls up with all his shit thrown in a pickup truck, but he's got all these AFA stickers on his truck, like, you know, the no foot, no horse one, and he's got his AFA certified, and he's kind of like, the owner of the dude ranch keeps telling me, like, this guy's real passionate about shoeing horses, oddly. Like, the owner of the ranch thought it was weird how excited the guy was about horseshoeing. Because the dude ranches, you know how they are, like, pay you $50 to come nail on a bunch of shit that they bought, you know. And went back to Iowa the next year, did all that, came back the next summer to work at the dude ranch, and I started helping that farrier. Jesse Eckert was his name. And I'd help him up there. Like, he'd come shoe horses. I'd like kind of have a day off, so he showed me how to do some rough clinching and stuff, and I was helping him. And one day he's like, have you figured out what you're going to do with your life yet? And I had a master's degree at this point, and I'm like working at this dude ranch, like half drunk all the time. And I'm like, no, why? He's, well, you don't suck that bad at this. He's like, maybe you should think about it, you know. And that was kind of all the positive affirmation I needed to be like, all right, cool, I'll be a farrier.
So your first year working at that dude ranch, did you have to do much welding?
I welded fucking everything that looked like I could weld it. I was like, I'm a welder. Like, this needs to be fixed. Okay, cool, I'll weld it. You know, or I'll weld shit to it until it's fixed, you know.
Don't even need welding, but we're going to weld the shit out of it.
I'm like down there welding T-posts together and shit, you know.
So did you like grow up around horses at all, or was this dude ranch your first like exposure to horses as well?
Yeah, that really was my first exposure to horses. Like, my neighbor had some growing up, and but like, I was into climbing trees. I'd jump my bicycle off anything. Like, I was an outside type of dude. I wasn't like an inside book nerd, but I definitely wasn't into horses. And I remember being at the dude ranch, just kind of looking at them like, whoa. You know, it was the first time I'd seen like 70 head of horses up in a catch pen, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's no big
Horses
deal to you
fit
guys,
into that romantic outdoor life,
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Like they fit right in there. So I could see how you would be like
And
very
when you're at a
accepting
dude ranch
to
where
it.
everybody is a poser, you know, being a poser, you ain't that afraid of it. You're like, well, we're all posers.
Yeah, you're fitting right in.
If any real cowboys roll up here, we're all headed for the hills anyway. It's not just me, you know. Like, but Jesse really helped me out, you know, and that dude, it was the oddest thing. His girlfriend got into vet school at Auburn here where I live now, and he moved here with her. And I had taken this job from a guy who was a guest at the dude ranch, and his son also worked at the dude ranch. He hired me to come like paint fence and feed horses and do all this crap at his boarding facility in South Carolina because I was kind of just in between, you know. I wanted to be a farrier. Like, I decided I wanted to be a farrier, and I'm trying to, like, I realize now, like, this aimless freaking 23-year-old, 24-year-old dude painting fences at a boarding barn asking a farrier if he can come ride with him. Like, I would tell that guy no. You know, I would act like that guy didn't even say anything. Just like I didn't
You have
hear
no
it, you know?
formal education in shoeing horses, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's a lot
Well, I
of
would
work.
try to
just-
always
just
tried to
a
hide the fact
master's
that I'd been to
degree.
school. Yeah, I definitely never led with that. You know, like I didn't tell people. I had enough self-awareness to realize that you may not just go start telling people that when you're over here covered in fence paint. But Jesse calls me. He's like, he's living in Auburn. He's like, hey, are you still wanting to be a farrier? And I was like, yeah. He's like, how's it going? I'm like, it's not going good. I can't get any of these people to give me the time of day. He's like, well, I started working for this guy here named Philip Box. And he's like the best farrier I've ever seen. He does better work than anything I've ever seen. He's like, if you still want to be a horseshoer, you should talk to him. And I'm like, okay. So he gives me Philip's number, and I sat on it for like a week trying to get the courage up to cold call this dude, you know. And I finally did. I called Philip. He tried to talk me out of being a horseshoer, but then he told me like what schools were good to go to. And I called Dusty's. He had a spot coming around. I put down a deposit, and like roundabout way, that's all she wrote, you know. But it's funny because that was in 2010. I think Philip had been shoeing horses like 4 years at that time.
Dang.
You know, 4 or 5 years. And so
he's pretty fresh in his career as well.
yeah, he had his journeyman and stuff. Like, Philip's a go-getter, you know, in his own right. And it's just, you know, that's kind of how it like, you know, I'm like the Forrest Gump of horseshoeing or something, you know. But
I don't know about that. That's a funny deal.
You know,
It's like, so like you were pretty like ready to just go to school though, because like school probably was like in your mind as well. Like that's just what you do. You don't just go serve an apprenticeship. Like you need to go to school somewhere.
yeah, I've always had this sense of needing to have. Well, I mean, you know, like especially at that time, if I just went up to a farrier, I wasn't gonna have enough in common with that guy to be able to stick around to learn anything. You know, going to horseshoeing school, you're paying money, so like at least for a couple weeks, Dusty has to put up with your shit. Like it doesn't matter who you are, you know, and you can learn the vocabulary. You can learn, you know, oh okay, don't wear these boots, like fucking, you know, don't wear a shirt like
it's
that.
true.
Like just little things that you can kind of get a little bit of the culture. That was what was great about Dusty's, is he was ate up with the culture. It wasn't just taking our money, giving us some tools, and kicking us back out the door, you know. And
it wasn't
I wanted
completely weird
that.
because like you just came from like the dude ranch life, and it's like, well, horseshoeing school wardrobe's not too much different than dude ranch wardrobe.
yeah,
Like too much, you know. So it probably was like a fairly easy blend in within that, you know. But like, was learning horsemanship a pretty hard process?
yeah, yep. It was, man. I caused some wrecks inside Dusty's shop that I don't think they've been surpassed. You know, epic fucking crashes. Like
Like what? You
knock
gotta
everybody's
give us a
anvil
story.
over, kick all the shit to. Well, this was like the second week, and I'm, you know, I could get a bit of tunnel vision. You know, I can be real determined and kind of lock down, you know, lose sight of the world around me, focused on
Forget
a
you're
task.
working on a live animal with blood
Yeah.
pumping through it.
Yes. And you know, I got this heinous trim that I've done 2 weeks into shoeing school, and I'm trying to get this shoe to fit that I don't know what I'm doing, and like I'm getting frustrated. And this old horse has kind of walked back on that tie rail in Dusty's shop. You know, it's tight like a piano wire, and I go over there and yank this horse's foot up off the ground. And it sets back, and like when it set back, it hit my shoeing cart, my little shoeing box that we had. You know, it leaps forward, and I don't know, like I did something while it was freaking out to make it freak out even more. I kind of went toward it. I think I probably just went at it like I was fixing to kill snakes or something. Yeah. And it got its butt up underneath the tie rail on the other side of the rail at Dusty's shop, you know, where the big long line of forges is and all the anvils and all the tool trays. And it's just swinging its butt around, just kicking tool trays over, knocking anvils over, the whole shit. Gets back under the rail, breaks the lead rope, goes running out of the shop. And I was just standing in the shop like, well, you know, this is the situation I created. I don't think I have anything else to add to it. I'll just stand in here while people that know what they're doing try to catch that horse. So
Was that one of your first time seeing a horse wreck, like a good one?
Not really, because I seen a horse. Oh man, at the dude ranch, I saw a horse piss in the corral. It kind of moved sideways and saw the piss on the ground and hung back and broke the leader up and flipped over backwards and smoked its pole on the ground and started doing the chicken and all this shit.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I had seen some wrecks at the dude ranch, but ones that I caused and ones other people caused, you know, but I just, you know, Dusty was like, well, you learn anything? You know, he just kind of like laugh at me but I would learn like not like I need a pat on the back for it, but like, you know, I could be like, okay, don't do that again, you know.
Right.
Enough times of don't do that again, and you eventually can kind of come around to what maybe you should do, you know. But
yeah, exactly.
First
Kinda
couple
like
of guys
you.
I worked for, they earned their, you know, mansion in heaven or whatever you would want to, however metaphor you want to go with, for putting up with my ass being around horses. Like, I worked for Jason Critton for a year, and like I did everything I could to convince that dude I'd never be a horseshoer. You know, like it was bad, but you know. Well, when you're green, man, you know.
That's what I was going to say. It's like,
start somewhere, you know?
yeah, like I think a lot of other guys, like no matter what, that's going to happen when you are around horses, is you're going to cause some wrecks. And it was like, I caused a ton of wrecks when I was a kid. Like I was doing it all the time. Like I remember tying my horses off to panels at jackpots and stuff that weren't supported by anything. All of a sudden, your horse is the horse in the middle of everything, dragging around a bunch of panels through the middle of the pins. You know, it's like you learn it sooner or later. Like you just learned it all at one time in front of everybody at horseshoeing school. Like,
Yeah.
Trial and error.
I was always just kind of like, well, that's how it is, you know. Like, it didn't deter me or anything. I just would try to get better. It's just taking time, you know. Like, it's just taking time to not be like that, you know.
No, but I think it's understanding that it was fixable in your head. You weren't just like, well, I'm just not a horseman. Like I just can't do this. Like,
yeah, I thought that it was something I could learn, at least good enough to be a farrier. Like, I'm not going to jump up on this sucker and get it to have a lead change or whatever, but
Yeah.
I can at least be a horseshoer, you know.
yeah.
Can walk them up to the tie rack here and good enough.
Yeah.
So how long were you in school at Dusty's?
I was broke, and I was really, really worried about being broke. And I was there for 8 weeks. This is kind of what I could afford. And you know, before I went to school, like, I was going to go to school, and Philip had told me about, like, the AFA and about apprenticing for a journeyman and doing that kind of stuff. So I moved back to Colorado from South Carolina, and I moved back in January, and I wasn't going to go to school until April. And so I was like, well, I got me this job at Starbucks to make a little money. And I was like, outside of that, maybe I could go work for some farriers to get a little experience. And looked on the AFA Find a Farrier, and all the journeymen that lived within an hour of Denver. I was living in Aurora. I sent them an email because I was too chicken to call them, really. But so I sent an email out to everybody that had an email address and was like, I'm Andrew Wells. I'm going to school at 5-Star Horseshoe School in April. I ain't looking for no money or nothing. I just want to come hang out, if nothing else. Like, maybe I could learn something. It was more, I wrote like a good email. And a few people replied back, and the main guy that replied back and seemed interested was Kevin Hatridge. And Kevin was really good buddies with Chris Gregory when Chris lived in Colorado. They were like, Kevin's a pretty good farrier, and I met him for breakfast at IHOP over in Parker, Colorado one time, and he let me go to work with him, and he let me pull the shoes off a horse, and then he made me just kind of stand over out of the way the rest of the day. Like, I can only imagine what, kind of a wreck I looked like pulling the shoes off that horse. Just so eager, you know what I mean? Like Dusty would say that I did everything like I was trying to kill snakes. And anyways, Kevin hooked me up. Like, Kevin had his son working with him, but he was going to let me work with him some just so I could be there. Mm-hmm. He hooked me up with Jason Critton, and Jason was running a huge business, and he had a guy working with him named Jaime Venegas at the time. I think Jaime still works in his company because Critton runs like a big multi-farrier practice now, and they shoot a lot of show horses and other horses. But, Kevin sent me to Jason. If Kevin hadn't have said something, Jason probably never, So I had them two guys, and I was going to go work for them when I got done with shoeing school. And so I wasn't that worried about only being able to do 8 weeks. I was going to be able to go back and, 8 weeks was good enough that I could, learn to pull and finish a little better and do all that kind of stuff. And
get started.
Yeah, I get started. So I did that, went back and worked with those guys, and it's kind of a hell of a ride.
Was Jason making a bunch of shoes or anything like that? Like, or did you get way into forging while you were in school? Or
I did.
Like was
it was like Dusty was, so it was cool. And I was there like April and May of 2011, and Dusty had been on the American Farriers team in like 9 and 10, or I think it was 9 and 10. He had been on the AFT. He's coming off the AFT, and then he was wanting to make the WCB team. So the first, Madison was in April while I was in shoeing school. And so when we showed up for shoeing school, Dusty's in the shop a lot making shoes for Madison, and Gene Leeser was judging that. And he had to make a toe cap bar shoe that was 3/4 fullered, and he had to make that traction shoe that's out of 5/8 square with the humps, at the widest point.
Oh, yeah.
It's pounded
that
down
was
into
like
a
the
block
first
kind of thing.
That was the first WCB video I ever saw on YouTube.
Yeah.
Was Craig making that little jig?
Yeah, to put that thing
to
in.
make that traction shoe.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
man.
Dusty's making that stuff, and Patrick was working for Brian Barrett at the time, and Brian would send him up to Dusty's to get, and Dusty was going to strike for Patrick. Patrick did the novice at that Madison in 2011, and Dusty was going to strike for him, so Patrick came to get a little practice in for that, and then go with all of us to this clinic out at Jim Keith's shop.
Okay.
And so I met Patrick, and Patrick was wanting to make shoes, and so I was just like, I felt comfortable bugging Patrick in a way I didn't feel comfortable bugging Dusty, which is
You guys were kind of at the same area in your career, you could just kind of getting going, huh?
Yeah, and so that was like, okay, this forging thing, can't have horses in the shop all night to practice not sucking at that, but I can make shoes all night to not suck. And like, I remember my hands, dude, because I had schoolboy hands. Like, even though I worked at the dude ranch, like I'd go in from the shop every night and put like Badger Balm on my hands and put socks over them so I could go to bed. Because if like something touched them, they just hurt like hell, Dusty was like, he showed us how to make a bar shoe out of 1/4 by 3/4, and you had to weld them with borax. And he's like, there's 1,000 feet of that 1/4 out there. Yeah. He's like, I dare you to use it all, And I made like a little over, if you counted everything that got welded, it was a little over 800 of them fucking bar shoes with the quarter.
Holy
Dusty was
shit,
borderline
dude.
pissed that I used so much of it. Like, from kids that went to the school for a few years after that, I would always hear stories from, like, oh, you're the guy with the quarter, using up all the steel. And,
God damn.
Were you welding gas or with coke?
yeah, I was welding in gas.
And
Oh,
did them
that
all
is
with borax.
rough.
Yeah, with borax, and it was like, it worked, like we could. Dusty made us do it. Like, it worked good. When I got out of school and had some Iron Mountain, I was like, this is cheap.
Yeah.
I don't even think you have to get this hot.
Yeah.
Was that one of the first things he had you guys do? Was just go to welding?
He did. He had, like, make a ring out of an old shoe, weld it, and then make that into a square, and then make that. I think you'd make the square into a triangle. Kind of making arcs and making straight things.
Learning how to use the horn a little bit.
Yeah, hitting on the horn, hitting off the horn, that kind of stuff.
How the hammer reacts.
Yeah, and trying to get you used to swinging your hammer. And I don't think I was very good at that. But I remember when my hammer swinging clicked, it was I went to the WCB because in 2011, that was the last year that they had, like, your striker could rasp for you. So, like, it really mattered who your freaking striker was, yeah. And,
Wow.
like, in all categories. All categories, you had a
novice.
striker, they could rasp.
Even in the novice?
Yeah, in the novice. And so
God
Dusty struck for Patrick at Madison, and he won the novice. Then he struck for Matt Kagnavich at the next one, I think in Edgewood, and Matt Kagnavich won it. Then he struck for Mike Nail in Eureka, and Mike Nail won it. And then that was another one. And then I went to Shreveport, which was the national championship. It was in October of 2011. Like, I got done with school in May. And the night before, there's so many stories. The night before, the novice was just one class back then, and it was on, like, the second day. So they had the 2-man on the first day and the match play and stuff. And then, they had the clinic. When everybody got there, then the next day was the 2-man and a little bit of match play. Then the next day was the individual and, the rest of the match play and stuff. And then the next day, the shoeing. So the novice was on the second day, and so after the first day that night, you could hang around and practice a little bit. And so, like, Nick Starr from Georgia was there to do the novice, and it was kind of like me and him were in a grudge match or whatever. Yeah. And I go over there to cut me a piece of steel to practice for this novice class while the last round of the 2-man's going. Like, Mark Milster's over there having his 2-man go, making draft shoes. Ian Ritchie's judging. I bared down on the chop saw and cut the power to the whole fucking place, dude. I looked over at the tent, and all you could see was little orange fires glowing in the fire pots. Like, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And evidently, Bodie went running and jumped over a fence and found a breaker and flipped it, and everything came back on. But, like, I hit that chop saw, the lights went out, and I just got up and walked away. Like, nothing happened.
Just, like, in the dark, you're like, I'm going to go hide.
Thank God it was dark, I guess.
Yeah, Craig saw me pushing on it before it happened, so he knew I did it. And, like, that was Craig's first impression of me.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So who's this fucking guy?
Yeah. Yeah, the reputation
God.
I have, I've earned it, But
So did Dusty strike for you there at that
yeah,
contest?
it was good. I like that year. Like, I got my certified farrier thing before that, and so I felt like I had momentum. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, I'm doing good. This is paying off. And went and did the novice, and, like, I made these. I mean, they were rough. I probably still have them somewhere, but Dusty rasped heel checks on them, rasped the section. Like, Dusty won that thing for me. And Stuart Blake would have beat me. Joe Nygren was striking for Stuart Blake, but he let Stuart make the wrong sides. Like, he had to make a front and a hind, and Stuart's were sweet, but they were the wrong sides. So I won, and or, like, by default or whatever. It just was one of them things, like, you get a little pat on the back. That's the best thing about the WCB is that when you're a knucklehead novice guy, you can get you don't got to be a knucklehead just because you're novice. I was certainly a knucklehead, but you get a little pat on the back, you keep going,
Yeah, confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what's nice about each one of the categories at WCB. Like they break it down. They're like, you have the hope that you could win big, like, but you could also win your little, like, you get the little gold stars along the way as well.
Yeah, keep the carrot dangling. Oh man, they've refined that thing so much, and it's just crazy to think that was 11 years ago. But,
so did you keep going to them right after that? Were you pretty hooked?
Yeah, like I was a fan before, like all that year. I had joined and I was getting the flyers and just following along with who's winning, who's getting the points, and like those little pieces of media, like the shoe lists and the newsletters. Like I thought they were the coolest fucking thing ever. I was into those like punk rock, homemade magazines when I was like in high school and stuff, and so these things kind of reminded me of that. They're like little scene magazines,
Yeah.
And I thought they were just the coolest thing ever. And then
Well, that was also a time kind of before like Facebook took off and shit like that, where you could see everything,
Yeah, there was social media and smartphones and stuff, but it wasn't like it is now. And
You're instantly updated.
Yeah, everyone was waiting for it in the mail. They weren't waiting for it on Facebook.
Yep.
And going there, like seeing all these dudes, seeing it in person, like I was hooked. Like you only, like all of us got. I was just so hooked. And the thing for the novice is you got an entry. You want an entry to the next one.
Yep.
And so I got category 1 at Madison in 2012, and I went to that and didn't do good. Me and Jason practiced. Me and Jason went to that one in Shreveport, and he was in the category 1s, and then we went to Madison and together. So like we kind of practiced, but like Jason's he is a great farrier, but like he's never put that much of his energy into making shoes, and especially back then, like a pair of 1/2 by 1 1/4 roadsters, like we were both kind of lost. Like we were down there beating on them, but we weren't necessarily really preparing to go do something at that contest, but like I wanted to go, and I didn't make the shoe in, and it was one of the first ones. I think it was one of the first ones where you like had to make the shoe in, because there were hundreds, counting the novice, there were 100 and something people at that one,
Yeah.
And it was huge. And did that, and then I didn't have the money to. Well, I wasn't gonna go. I got the entry, and I wasn't gonna go, and it was I'd been making the shoes kind of, but Dusty texted me. He was like, "You're coming to Madison, right?" And I was like, no." He's like, "Why not? You got the entry." I was like, I can't afford a plane ticket. I ain't got no money." He bought me a ticket. He bought me
that's cool.
Stacy sends me an email, and like Dusty bought me a plane ticket to go to Madison, and I slept on the floor in a hotel room that Mike Stone, Scott Inman, Dusty, and Brian Barrett were all sharing. So like the 4 of them were crammed in a hotel room, and I was sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag. And it took me a few months. I paid Dusty back for that one. At least there's a bunch I haven't paid him back for. But
were you still working at Starbucks at this time, or were you just working with the other horseshoers and like having
I did through
clients of your own?
2011. Through the end of 2011, I stayed working at Starbucks at nighttime.
Damn.
A couple of days a week, because, Jason was paying me at that time, like he was paying $75 a day, and then Kevin would pay me based on like what we did, and if we didn't do that much, like understandably, he was paying his son to be full-time help, and Kevin's son was like really good, help, and I was just kind of learning.
So were you also trying to like pick up horses for yourself, or did you not feel like you were ready to do that? Or
it was later on into like 2012 when I kind of started doing that. Like I definitely needed to not at that time,
yeah.
I did my certified and stuff, but it's kind of like I did my journeyman the next fall, like fall 2012 in September, and I could take that test. Like I cobbled together enough points, I guess, to pass it. Fuck, you wouldn't want to charge for that job. Like,
That's so crazy, though. Like there's so many people out there that have shod horses for the public for a long time before they ever do their certified. And like here you were like taking your journeyman, and you still didn't even think that you were like.
And I was working for other people most of the time when I got my journeyman, but it's, like I was not scared of a test, man. Like a test was was
I mean, you already went through how many years of college? Like,
yeah. So like
You're
it
prepared
shapes
for
you into
testing.
being a certain kind of thing. Like, you know, the idea of running a business day in and out was terrifying to me, but taking a test was simple. You know, like
yeah,
no big deal.
Oh, I was
But-
so the opposite. I still am. Like starting a business was I was already running businesses in high school that weren't like good businesses, but they taught me business practices. And so like it was like easy to start one later in life, but I wasn't good in high school because of my business practices. And so that was like I'm still scared of taking tests. I'm not. Like I had to learn to be a student later after learning how to be a businessman. Like
Yeah,
So
I'm
it
still
seems
trying
like
to
you
learn
were
to be a
like-
businessman. Like it's
Yeah.
the businessman thing's still a work in progress. Like, you know, imposter syndrome is a real thing too. You know, like when you over cultivate that mindset of a student, you can allow yourself to kind of hang back and never like spring out into the, you know, out into the real world. Like get out here in the spotlight, do some shit. You know. Like, oh no, I'm just learning, you know. Like you can kind of get
That makes
comfortable in
sense.
that spot, yeah.
you called it imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's like a buzzword for never feeling like you are like you're there. You know what I mean? Like you see other people and you think they're there, but you never think you're there. Like or that
Yeah.
if you do get to a place that you don't belong there, you know.
Hmm.
I feel that. I feel that all the time.
Yeah, dude, like, I think about making the team, and I'm like, well, the only reason I was up there is because other people didn't want to, or, you know, that 2019 team I was on, we were actually the top 4 that year for the WCB. That was kind of the cool milestone, like, finally made one that I actually made it. I didn't have to, somebody else didn't have to give me my spot, you know,
Yeah.
but
So that was 2019. Did you made the teams before then, or how long had you been shoeing horses by the time you made a team?
I guess 5 years, technically. I was the second alternate for that 2016 AFT, which is really cool. The WCB works. Like I heard Carl in y'all's podcast, you know, talking about Roy Bloom telling him 3 years kind of thing. And, you know, the kind of shit takes me longer because it's not just reading books, you know, but I couldn't go. I went to 2 in 2012 at the WCB, and then I only missed 1 in 2013. And I got second in the category 1s to Alan Drigg. And then I did the 1s at Madison in 2014. I won that one and then jumped into the 2s. And then I was second to Mick Fitzgerald in the 2s in 14. and we were the Cat 2 team. You know, the year that fall, Philip and Robert and Paul Keller and Seth Whiteley had been the first Cat 2 team that they ever put together, and they sent them to Yorkshire with the WCB team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then they're going to do the Cat 2 team again for the 2014 year. And at the time, Craig was like planning on sending us to some contest in Sweden. And we're like, okay, whatever. That didn't work out. And I remember like partway through 2015, Craig called and was like, hey, you know they do an apprentice class at Stoneleigh? And I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's like, well, we don't have an apprentice team. And I was like, no, you're right, we don't. The AFA doesn't have an apprentice team. He's like, you think we could get in on that? You think you guys could become the AFA apprentice team? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, I'll write something and send it to the board members. So I started emailing people on the board and got them to vote on it. And it's kind of shitty, I guess, in some ways, because we just kind of backdoored it in there. But, like, it worked. It happened. And in 2015, you know, the board members thought, no, that's a great idea. Like, why wouldn't we do something like that if we could? And the AFA is not fielding one. We got these 4 guys. Like, why don't we just you know, like, we were told the AFA, like, the WCB is going to pay for the trip. We just need to go under your guys' banner so that it's all cool with the BFBA or whatever. And so that existed for a couple of years. You know, you guys got in on that, going to Stoneleigh.
Yeah, I think my team was the last WCB team
Yeah.
to go under that banner, and then it
I
was.
remember them getting all shitty about you and Tom Andrew. You know.
Yeah, and then they started using the intermediate class from
Yeah.
convention to make an apprentice team.
An apprentice
as
team.
well.
Right.
So they kind of.
But that was good,
with
like-
a whole new class.
I'd been to England before, but not for horseshoeing, and going over there and getting into going to Andy Reader-Smith's shop, you know, the whole experience, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that was so cool. And so cool. And that was in the middle of that 2015 season, and, like, I was doing good in the twos that year in 2015, and it, you know, I made the top 10 that year, and Philip was the alternate on the WCB team that year. That was when Robert got on there the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
So had you been staying in contact with Philip this whole time
yeah,
through competing and everything, going to school?
Yeah, when I'd gotten my certified in 2011, and I sent Philip a message on Facebook. It's like, hey, you may or may not remember talking to me, but I'm just gonna say what's up, and that I stuck with it, kind of like well, you know, when you're freaking less than a year into being a horseshoer, but you think you're sticking with it
because he was the whole reason why you decided to go to horseshoeing school, right?
Yeah, he
go
steered
to
me to a
Dusty's?
good one. Like, my ass was gonna go to a 3-week program in Purcell because it
Mhm.
was $600 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
like anybody would that doesn't know shit. You know, you just luckily meet someone that does know. And so I sent him a message, was like, hey, I got my certified, and he wrote back, like, that's incredible. Like, I didn't think you would even ever actually go do it. You know, and I'm like, well, I'm having a good time, so
Here I am.
yeah. And he's like, let's stay in touch. And I'm like, okay. So the next fall, I went and did the journeyman thing. I planned to come down here and visit Philip because they do a clinic up at Lookout Mountain Horseshoeing School in Gadsden, and like Gadsden's kind of where I'm from. Philip's like, we'll go to that clinic and then we'll stop by and see your folks, because I was living in Colorado and I never came home because I didn't have any money to come home. And we went to that clinic, went by my house, and then I came back down here, and me and Philip made shoes and shot horses for a few days, and I went back to Colorado. And so I've actually met him in 2012, you know. And 2013, 14, like 2014, I had a bad year in life. Like, I just kind of got off the rails, you know, like shit went south, and everything was going okay horseshoeing wise, and I was doing all right in horseshoeing contests, but that was like the thin thread, you know, holding my life together.
Were you just probably trying to figure out life is like, figure out yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I got married for a couple months, and that was shitty, and then just fucking drinking too much, being a moron, you know, like I kind of got into this.
How old were you at that time?
27, man, like way old enough to know better, you know?
Yeah.
But I kind of was like, because this is another poisonous mindset that going to too much college can get you into, is that like, as long as my grades are good, it don't really matter what else I do, you know? If I can take care of the main thing. I don't think that's
poisonous for college.
Yeah.
I think that's poisonous as shit for a lot of life, man. It's like I got a young guy in my life right now that it's like trying to tell him that he's like, he works a really good job and everything like that, and he's like, well, I'm making better money than I ever have, and I'm going to work every day. It's like, yeah, but you're fucking getting shit faced every single night. That's not a good way to control and handle life, just because, you know, you're having lady problems and trying to figure out the world a little bit, you know, like.
Yep.
But how the fuck do you get out of that area? Like, well, how did you do it?
Man, I got sick of myself, you know? Like, shit was going bad, and I got sick of myself and was going to get out of Colorado, and Philip was like, come down here. There's a soft place to land down here, kind of, you know, pretty much. And I'm from Alabama, so it wasn't like going to fucking Kenya. You know, I mean, I know how it works here. Like, you know, I never wanted to live in Alabama really, but needed to go somewhere, and Philip was super, super generous about it. Like, he's still one of my very best friends. I don't see him as much as I used to, but that dude took off a shoeing, flew to fucking Denver, and got in a moving truck and drove 30 hours across the country with my ass to move me into his backyard, you know? Like,
That's cool.
Who does that? You know?
Yeah.
That's a good friend.
Yeah. And it you know, it kept me going. It kept me, the only good momentum I had going in my life, it kept that momentum going. And when I moved down here and was with Philip, all the fuck we did was practice for contests and go shoe horses, you know? And it focused me back in. And
was Philip then that person, do you think, in your life that, like, did it give you somebody to try to please a little bit? Where, like, did you not have that person before then?
Yeah, to this day, like, I don't see Philip, you know, but every once in a while, but like disappointing Philip box is one of the most horrifying things that I could do in my life. Like,
Yeah, I could feel that.
And even though, like, you could probably do some fucked up shit and Philip would forgive you, not be disappointed.
oh, I have, dude.
But,
I've done, like, Philip knows me better than fucking anybody, and will still shake my hand and look me in the eye.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, you don't know you need a guy like that until you got one and you need it. You know?
Right.
And then you're like, thank fucking God that somebody cares about me like that, you know?
No, it's huge, and it's like, and especially somebody is like, it was perfect because it's like somebody in the trade you're wanting to do as well, like, and somebody that's doing well in that trade. So it's like, it's somebody easy to take confirmation from. Where like other people, you're like, I don't think you really understand what's going on in my world, you know. So it's like you don't really want to like accept anything from them.
Yep, and Philip's another one of them guys that if he tells other people you're all right, they're like, I don't know, but if you say so, you know, and it helps, you know, like it helps.
Oh, yeah.
Like that when I was still in Colorado, Chris Madrid was like that for me. Like that dude would let me come to his house, and who knows why, you know, like I wouldn't have if I was him, but I went down there a bunch. We would make shoes. Like, I remember going down there to practice for Sheridan, and he's making 3/4 fluid shoes. He's like, cut a piece. He's like, get in here with me. Like, go heat for heat. Well, I couldn't make a good heel. He's like, you drive all the way down here to practice for a contest, and you can't even make a fucking heel. And I'm just like looking down at the anvil, you know. He's like, we're going to make these fucking shoes until you can make a heel.
Yeah.
And like all weekend we made 3/4 fluid shoes, but
Nice.
yeah, it helped. You know,
I think that must be Money's like thing, because dude, that's like the time I went down there. The first thing is he's like, we got to make inventory for tomorrow, and we were making concave shoes. I would make a side and he'd make a side, and we were making them together. And he's like, you came all this way and you can't even punch a nail hole. I got to nail these on, and you can't. They aren't even usable. And I'm like, I don't even know what a usable nail hole is anymore. Like,
that makes me feel so much better that that's like his thing. It wasn't just me.
Like he just like, man, it was like, I loved going down there. It's like the first, like we did that. Then we woke up the next morning. He's like, we got to go help Ronald put the roof on his barn. So like we went like 5 o'clock in the morning. We're up on these like ladder, putting the roof on the barn. And then we had a pile of horses to shoe, and he meant business. It was like,
yeah,
it was great.
I think the only reason that I got to ever go to his place was because, so like I slept in the floor of that hotel room with all them guys, and I got to be buddies. Like Scott Inman was going through a divorce, Stone had just been through one, and them guys wanted to go party in Madison, and I was like, I'll drive, you know, and so. I got to knowing them guys, and I kept in touch with Stone. And like later on in the summer that year, 2012, I started going down to Stone's because he was headed. He would go over to Texas. That's how him and Jukes got to working together at that one account, and see his kids. His ex and his kids have moved over there. He'd go over there and just kind of squat and be around his kids, and then come back to New Mexico and try to shoe 2 weeks worth of horses in 8 days. And I'd go down there to New Mexico and stay with Stone, and since me and Stone got to be buddies, like I got to go hang out with Madrid some, and like get to be around those guys a little bit. Like Mike Stone was like, as for like horseshoeing, like a huge influence on horse. I think I still shoe horses every day, kind of mostly how Stone showed me,
Yeah.
And what is that like? What are Stone's like? Some of his hard and fast like things that he's doing.
Ultra basics, like don't bottom the feet out, flat trims, balance. Like if you don't know what else is balance, like perpendicular to the limb. Like don't be high outside on the fronts, don't be high on the inside on the hinds. Like little stuff like that. And then he's the first guy I ever seen like burn a toe clip way back into the foot and dress it all down and like. It's like, oh, you can back a foot up with a toe clip,
Yeah.
I went off on my own and made a giant mess of that for a while, overdoing it. But that kind of stuff. And I worked for Jason and for Kevin, and like Jason was he loves horses and shoeing big, nice show horses, high-powered horses, and running a successful business. Like, he loves that the way any of us ever loved making shoes and competing. And I was such a jackass working for him because I wanted to be like making concave shoes and nailing them on everything and doing that kind of stuff. And I just thought that what I was doing with Jason was the stupidest thing ever. And I was such a jerk. And like, he fired me in 2012, and it was because I was a jackass and a shithead. So it was good that I knew some other people to go work for.
But it's easy to do that though when you like go somewhere else, because like the guy I learned to shoe horses from, well, like the first shoe he helped me nail on was a Natural Balance. Like, he was a team roper, and he's like he was okay using like Natural Balance shoes and stuff like that. And he shot, like, his horses were sound and like they had feet together. And it was like, well, then I started going to some WCBs and stuff like that. And it was like, I thought I knew better than what he knew. And so like when I'd go to shape shoes of the trailer, I would shape them how I thought they would be. And like and then it finally got to a point where he's like, listen, I don't know why the fuck you're riding with me if you can't just do what I'm asking. Like, while I'm here, while you're here, man.
I'm doing, yeah.
It's easy though when you're like first starting out to like be a fucking
You get
idiot.
that big head.
Yeah, I know everything.
Yeah.
And like,
Yep.
Craig Turnka's the best. Why aren't you doing everything like he does it?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you want to be like the best? You know? And you force like regular, well-meaning dudes into a corner where they have to start telling you what they think is fucked up about that guy to defend themselves. You know, you just like, it creates a whole toxic circle just because you're an idiot. Like, the situation arose from you being an egotistical moron, you know? Like,
you're pushing it.
yeah. But
Yeah,
I
remember
moved
being
here.
that way too.
Things kind of started rolling. Like, Josh Stanley called me about doing the 2-man at the convention at the end of 2015. I went out to his place and practiced for that, and like, me and that guy ended up being really great friends. Like, and I never would have made the AFT. I never would have gotten into the groove of that, you know, if it hadn't have been for him and him calling.
Did you guys jive pretty well, do you think? Because like Josh is a very intelligent person as well. Like,
yeah, big time smart nerd. Like, you know, tons of education, like that kind of guy, you know. Like, I could, you know, yeah, I think like most horseshoers found his sense of humor to be really offensive or whatever, and I thought, you know, we just got along. Me and him just got along. So
Yeah.
no, I never felt like Josh was always one of those guys. He was super nice, but you're like, I don't think I'm smart enough to follow along with what you're saying.
Everybody was always just like, I think that fucker's making fun of me.
Exactly. You're just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a compliment. Like, and Craig's that way sometimes too. As like, I love Craig for the fact that I don't ever know if he actually likes me. It's like so in the air. Like,
No, I still
man, I don't know where I lie here.
Yeah.
I
I was
find
just
it easier
texting
to
with him
keep my
earlier. I
mouth
was like,
shut.
I think Craig hates me. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Man, so like going down to Phillips, is that like, so that was a pretty good life move then?
It has been, yeah. Like, you know, just like that change of scenery, shock to the system. Your life and your friends will allow you to make a giant mess once, but if you do it twice, that's who you are now. Like, and everyone knows it. So, you know, you used up your mulligan. Let's go. You know, that's the way I've always thought to myself. And, you know, like I just really wanted to making the AFT or the WCB team meant more to me than anything. That was my singular focus back then, and just kind of wanted to be on that path, and not just like for me, like I didn't just, you know, who gives a shit, but like be in the group, be among these people, be around these guys, because like you can, like, the WCB is like a great group of people, and if you're not real sure how to be, if you're not sure how to behave or whatever, like the guys that go to all that stuff all the time and are deep into that group are a pretty good example of some left and right parameters, you know what I mean? Like, for the most part. And I grew up in that. I grew up in the WCB. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up with Craig and Bodie and those guys. Like, Chris Madrid was so awesome to be like, hey, you know, if you keep acting how you're acting, you're gonna be this guy to people. Like, you'll be that guy to people, or you'll be this guy to people. You know, he'd always be like, hey, you need to quit that shit because people see people see that, and he would be like that, you know, and that's valuable. If you didn't learn that shit some other time in your life, you need to learn it sometime, you know. And
that's right.
This group has been that for me, you know. And I wanted to be on those teams and stuff to, like, a big part of it was just like, hey, everyone that's invested in me, I'm trying to do something with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not this, like, Oscars speech kind of way, but just like, I wasn't just wasting your time when I asked you for that advice, you know?
Yeah,
No,
I think people
get
the opinion or whatever that everybody there is like to boast their own chest, but really, you know, everyone's there to actually help each other out. And you know,
Lots of
just
hungry
exactly
people
what
there.
you said. Yeah, like, you know,
People
they helped
come
you
there to
out in
get
more
fed,
ways
you
than
know?
horseshoeing.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that was like that. It was good. That 2016 convention, I was second alternate. That was when Bodie made the team for the first time, and he was on there with Craig and Scudder and McPhee, and Chad was the first alternate. And you don't get nothing for being the second alternate. As a matter of fact, they'll normally crop you out of the pictures and stuff, but you get to go to the practices if you want to, like on your own dime. But you know, you can show up there. And I went to a few of them and just tried to be around those guys, and I got to see Bodie having a first year on the team experience, you know, and like, okay, so you don't say shit, like you do your thing, and then everyone jumps down your throat, and you just don't say anything. You just take it, try to do better the next time. Like I saw Bodie do that for a year, you know, and Craig, I was on the team. He obviously wasn't going to do the classic coming around the next year. And then Scudder had some live stuff pop up, so he wasn't going to do it either. So I actually got to do the classic with those guys at the 2017 classic.
Okay.
And so they had to have a couple practices with me. That was when I took the vice to the chin and all that stuff. That happened with that team. And then the 2017
Vice to the chin.
Do what?
Vice to the chin.
Yeah, we were having a classic practice, and I tried to stuff a Ag Hill draft shoe in the Gene Leeser vice, ground side down, like foot side up, because I wanted to I wanted to rasp all the way around the perimeter of the front half of the shoe. I stuck that shoe in there, and my heel cocks weren't worth a fuck, you know, like they're all, the fronts are leaning down and stuff. If they'd have been square, it probably would have stayed in the vice, you know, but they weren't. So I stuck
the handle
thing in
came
the vice,
back and
I had
got
the
you.
handle. Had to push the handle all the way to the floor because I had these big gnarly heels on there. I stuck the shoe in there. I let go of the handle. The shoe shot out of the vice, and the handle uppercutted me in the chin. And,
I didn't know that. Fuck, that had to hurt.
Yeah, 24 stitches. 4 on the inside of my mouth and 20 on the outside of my chin.
And that was at the contest?
No, it was at Chad's house.
Oh, practice.
Oh, Tim McPhee fucking hated my guts because, like, I couldn't really do. He's stuck with me on the team. I couldn't really do the shit, and you know, I'm not his kind of guy. So like, it was a lose situation, and he'd had about enough of me. And if I did this, like this was Saturday afternoon, I take the vice to the chin, and he's like, "What do you do?" Ah, fuck him. Call him an ambulance. Let's keep practicing. Tim says he's like, I'm like, do not call an ambulance because I'm not paying for a fucking ambulance. Like,
yeah.
Just somebody let me borrow the truck and I'll drive up here to the urgent care because like my chin was hanging forward, like it ripped me up pretty good. We weren't just gonna like tape this up and walk it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So did it cut you like horizontal, like
No,
someone was slicing your throat?
It caught the corner of my chin right there and just kind of tore it. So it cut underneath my chin that way a ways, and then right up to the corner of my mouth a pretty good ways.
So it didn't like
Nice.
fuck up your jaw or like the bone or
No,
nothing. Just the
fortunately,
skin, just
like
yeah.
didn't knock me out or anything either. I just kind of
You
stumbled
just had
back.
a mud flap.
Yeah, I just had a mud flap. It was funny because Gene was there. Gene came to judge us to help us out, you know. And
What
he hears
luck?
the commotion. I dropped my shoe and tongs, and I'm walking. There's a mop sink in the back of Chad's shop, and I was walking back there like this. Tim's dirty T-shirt from the go before was laying there. I grabbed that T-shirt and put it on my face. And Gene comes back there. I'm leaning over the mop sink, and I'm like, trying to talk myself out of it. Like, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. You're okay. And Gene's like, let me see. And I took the T-shirt off, and Gene's knees got all wobbly. He's like, oh, God. And, like, he goes running back in there. He's like, Chad. Andrew needs to see a doctor.
Like, this is serious.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
That's funny.
And those guys were like, what? What did he do? Fuck. Like, it was like, they call me number 6 because, like, the second alternate's the 6th guy,
Yeah.
Number 6.
God
Well,
damn it,
number
number
6.
6.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
The next weekend, me and Chad went to the Utah contest, which was a convention prep, and I won that fucker. Like, it was, mentally that was
cool.
a good hurdle to get over because the next weekend in Utah, we're doing the journeyman class, and I got blood dripping on the anvil from my chin,
Yeah.
Still bleeding.
Yeah, fuck.
Well, that'd be a good confidence boost, knowing that, like, okay, just because that happened doesn't mean shit. Like, I still can put forth the effort and do something.
Yeah, the monster was still alive in there somewhere. I wasn't like, y'all know me, I wasn't like, if I was going to win a contest, it depended who was there, Like, if the really good guys showed up, I was probably going to be right behind them,
Yeah. I do remember some times, like asking you after a go or whatever, and you're like, oh, I just got in my head and, fucked myself over, basically,
Yeah, story of my life, yeah.
Dude, that is my thing. Is like some of my best competition advices actually came from you after contests, of like you watch me and you're like, dude, you are your fucking own worst enemy. Like, you're not doing good. Like,
that was the pot calling the kettle black. I remember sitting there with you at that bar in that bowling alley in Madison talking.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah, it's like, that's the rate limiting factor. It's like, when I was on the teams, like, I could kill practices. I was the best practice player we had. You get to the fucking main event, and I just like could only get about 75% of myself.
So crazy to think about, like, relating like to myself. Like, once the clock goes, to me, like, that's when I always feel like I'm better that way. Where, like, when you're saying, like, it depends on who shows up, like, I don't feel like I necessarily have that in me to where it always usually would come down to how much practice I put forward into it. Because it's like, to me, it's just like a muscle memory thing. Like, you do it over and over, time and time again. So that way, once the clock goes, you just go and you just forget about everything else. Like, I don't necessarily think I have, like, that side or whatever where you're saying, like, it just depends on what side shows up. It's just a matter of how much work I put in beforehand, and that's what determines. So, yeah.
Yeah, dude, and, like, I would practice so much that it was almost to a fault, And I realized that, like, quality is greater than quantity, but you couldn't convince me of that in 2015. I just make stacks of fucking shoes, like 60 of each,
Which is great. That's a lot of fucking shoes.
Oh, I mean, Philip, you could ask Philip. I just fill his shop with fucking barnacles, twisted.
You did it
steel.
to Dusty, too.
Yeah, but I wasn't going to do any, like, I had to do that. I had to go through that, like, to understand that that's fine, but that you got to have a little different approach if you're really going to find any success in it, But Dylan, though, me and Dylan did the 2-man in Chattanooga, I think it was.
Crane?
Yeah. And because, like, when Dylan first started showing up at the WCBs, for whatever reason, Jeff and Debbie were like, hey, Andrew, will you watch out for Dylan? Can he stay with you? Can he travel with you?
Oh, God.
Will you take care of him and stuff? And I'm like, oh, yeah, fuck yeah. What? I don't know why you selected me out of this group. But take old Dylan with me, and we became really good buddies. And, that dude's grown up a lot. But in some ways, in some ways not. But we did the 2-man in Chattanooga, and, like, at that point, he's leading me through the fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, I could make those Hind draft shoes pretty good when they were out of 17. I never really put in enough practice to figure him out, the choreography out of 16, you know. And I was kind of having a rough go in that too, man. And Dylan's like, hey, you need to focus on what you're doing, not how you're doing. And I'm like, you're a fucking smart kid, you stupid son of a bitch, you know. Like,
yeah, that is a good one.
And I haven't done much competing since spring 2020, but I think about that all the time, you know. Try to focus. If I'd have thought, if I could have had, it may have not have helped me out, but like freaking 2016, if I'd have had those words, there's no telling. Maybe I could have had a better individual go once in a while, you know.
Yeah. Focus on what you're doing and not how you're doing. Is that what he said?
Yeah. Because he knew me. Like, I would get to thinking about, fuck, I'm having a bad go, and then the thought of I'm having a bad go would overtake me, and then that I'm having a bad go would quickly morph into like, all these people can see me having a bad go, you know, and then you're locked down. Once you start worrying about some shit like that,
yep,
your forearms cramping, you're sweating double, like things ain't going good. You know?
No, you start breathing short and stuff, and it's like you're just throwing the rest of it away. Even you're just like, dude, and that is what you told me at that bar when we were in Madison. Is that you were like, man, I watch you like have a little mistake and you just shut down the horse. He's like, if you don't think all of us are fucking up and correcting the next two, you know, he's like, that's what's going on. Like, and it is easy to watch. It's like, it's almost like a highlight reel when you watch somebody else's go. You aren't in their head, or you aren't seeing the close up little mistakes they're making. And it's like, man, they just had such a smooth go. It was great. They never fuck up. And it's like, then you have your go and you make like one little mistake and you're just like, I'm still really bad about it. I mean, Gavin's watched some of our practices. If like my striker hits something too hard or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that the other day. Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm pretty shut down for the rest of the shoe. It's like,
yeah,
it's hard. It's like, that's how my mind works. Like, it's just.
No, the thing that causes that in you is what allowed you to be Raleigh Kirkpatrick. Do you know what I mean? Like, all the good shit that you have and do and about you and who you are, like, it also has that little, you know what I mean?
Huge.
It's got that little pimple on its face. Like, that is what it is. Like, you couldn't have everything you have without having that, you know? So
right.
It's just one of those things. Like, you're obviously learning to keep moving on a little bit. Teams will do that
but
to
it's
you. Like,
it's hard though. Either way, it's just like I try to remember that. It's like, man, every good horse has got a quirk. You know, it's like I owned like a really good head horse, but you couldn't even get a pair of clippers near the dumb bastard. Like, he was just kind of an idiot about it. It's like you just had to accept it a little bit. But it's hard to accept it. Like, for me, it's hard to accept it about myself. It's something that drives me insane about myself that I do that.
yeah, I think I would just say I helped Philip overcome a pile of that by being around all the time. You know, like, just this Tasmanian devil in his shop fucking up all his shit, like, always having to account for me, you know. Like, just kind of, it's like water rushing over a rock. And being on the teams was good for that for me, where, like, it's one thing to be an idiot by yourself, but there's three other guys standing here, and A, they're dependent on you, and B, they're watching you really closely if you start to be a fool. So, like, don't be a fool, you know? And I was on nothing but good teams. You hear horror stories of teams, and I don't know if those guys go tell horror stories because they were on the team with me. But from where I was standing, I was only on, like, cool teams to be on, you know? And that's the...
No, I think everybody knows when they're on one of those teams that's not that it's like gonna have the horror stories. I think they are well aware of it while it's happening. It's like, I've been around them, like, where you're like, this is a weird dynamic.
Some people are totally oblivious to that as well, thinking like everything's hunky dory, but they might be part of the problem or the reason why it's a horror story, and they're just in their own little world thinking it's great. You know?
Yeah, that type of guy is normally the reason that it's terrible. And you try to make the selection processes for the teams more and more rigorous so that can't happen. Really.
Right.
Like, make guys prove who they are before they have a chance to be on this fucking thing, you know?
So the way that they're doing the AFT now, were you kind of part of that as far as like the way they're doing more contests or practice or whatever you want to call it, qualifications?
That was Travis Smith's baby and his idea. And
okay.
I didn't, like, he bounced that idea off of me when he came up with it, and was like, poke holes in this. And I was like, can't really, like, other than it being a whole lot of work, a whole lot of extra work nobody's asking you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Can't, it won't be a bad thing. If you build it, they will come,
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of his deal. I think in retrospect, it seems like you're just poaching off the WCB's vibe, but it's not really the case. You just want more,
And better.
Like, but yeah, more and better, faster, stronger. Like just trying to make
It's competition.
guys, work a little harder before, because the convention is really, really hard, but it's also a really, really particular type of contest. And if it's set up for a guy to come have the weekend of his life and suddenly be on the team for a year, there's a reason there's been more nightmare AFTs than not,
And I remember, like, the first year I went to convention, I went out setting to, like, practice every class. And then afterwards I learned, like, oh, really, the qualifier class is really, one thing that really makes a big difference. And then what isn't the one where you make 3 shoes, like double point, or is it the qualifier? One of them or whatever.
Yeah, the specialty forging's double points and the shoeing's double points, and you got to do that used to have to do that qualifier to get into the shoeing, but it was a few years ago we changed that the top 20 to make the shoeing. It's an aggregate top 20 now. It's not just the top 20 out of that one class, at the convention.
Yeah.
So I think that was a positive change, but
Well, I think, like, even you're trying to say, like, go off the vibe of WCB, but it's like Craig says it even himself, of like, competition makes everything better. So even having another competition series that's grabbing teams, like, it's going to make both of them a better deal. Like, you can't say, like, Craig probably did prod them pretty hard to be like, we got to do something else to choose this AFT, because it's not choosing the best team always.
And
it's not choosing the best team for that competition either.
It's not. And the humiliation at Stoneleigh got to Travis, I think not that's the wrong word, but like Travis was on 3 teams and 2 of them didn't do very good at Stoneleigh, and like, why, you're asking yourself, why not? What can we do to help that? And like, it ain't really Coke or not, or freaking on the foot or not. It's just like the people who end up on the teams for Scotland, England, and Wales are like hardened killers compared to our average competitors. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and they have less like bullshit. Like when we went over to, when I was on the Cat 2 team, the England team had just kicked a guy off.
Yeah.
And just took on a new guy. They didn't even have anything weird about. They just like, no, man, you're not good enough. We're going to take this guy because we don't want to lose.
Right, and it wasn't a crisis.
No, it was no big deal. Like, it was no like conspiracy theories, nothing about it. It was just like, hey, this is a team representing our country that's here to win. And it's like the same thing. It's like, if you're going to the Olympics on the basketball team, they don't care if you made it or not. They'd be like, you're sucking. You're not starting. Like, that's just how it is.
Yeah, that was the 2017 AFT. Like, those 3 guys were the guys that I stood up with me, and me and Joanna got married. Like, we were like best friends. It was a great and like Bodie wasn't Bodie yet. He was on his way to being. I remember like we had a practice at Josh's house before Stoneleigh, and Bodie did a front foot, and me and Brian and Travis were like, well, what the fuck is this? Like, when did you all of a sudden, like
decide you're doing a front?
Like, we just laid this job down that looked like it would stay on anybody's job, anybody ever.
He's just all of a sudden a bad motherfucker.
Like, like, oh, Bodie's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, he just changed, We're all still over here crawling around in the water. This fucker's got legs and a fucking,
He does got legs.
samurai sword now. Like, and then we went to we were on the team in 2017. We go to that convention in 2018, and he fucking won it.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, But that team, we just like held each other accountable because we all knew that we had ground to make up, And it wasn't that we all became world champions because of it or nothing, but like that team did as good as it could possibly do at Stoneleigh because we were a team, And you're like, okay. And so the next 2 WCB teams I was on, I was like, at least had an idea of what it feels like when it's clicking,
Yeah.
And what could be possible. And then I was on those 2 WCB teams with Tom, and he has a lot of leadership presence, how we were going to do things and how we were going to be. There's just so much to say. I was like trying to make a statement about that period of time.
Was Tom like easy to he made it easy to follow the lead probably of like what you guys were going to do in the team. So it's like it feels weird when you're like you want to be real gung ho and you're trying to also be gung ho to the rest of the team and like no one else is doing it. But like if Tom's being like if you're gung ho and not even the most like enthusiastic and Tom's like even more level, it's like it's easy for everybody to be moving forward really quickly.
Leading by example.
Yeah, and Tom, it was that 2018 Classic. Tom and Robert and Money and Lamar won it. And me and Bodie and Brian and Travis, we were all excited that we got 9th because it was a single digit, And we were like, fuck yeah, single digits,
Crack the top 10.
Yeah, to go from that to being on the team with a guy that just won the whole thing, you're kind of like, all right, I better starch my shirt before I go over here kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember being like in the room before the convention or whatever, and Bodie was saying, like, there's the meeting or whatever, like, if you're wanting to be on the team. I remember Bodie saying, like, hey, if you are selecting this box, you better be prepared and ready to put in the work. Mm-hmm. I remember specifically saying, if you got a boat, you better fucking put that boat away if you make it on the team because you're not getting on that boat at all this summer. Yeah. He's like, if you're selecting this box, you're putting in the work, and we are going to be doing good. I do remember him saying that.
And it's hard to get people to actually do that, but
super hard.
That first WCB team I was on was with Tom and Travis Buck and Chad. And Adam was the alternate, and he was around all the time. And you really, like, Tom's like a hardcore guy, fast and furious, like, no nonsense, like, angry, redheaded type of competitor. But, like, with us, he became, like, this servant leader, Like, he took a hind foot. He didn't want to do a hind foot. But they let me trim one hind-footed to practice, and Tom's like, I guess I'm doing a hind foot. And just seeing Tom do things to help us 3 get better. Like, Tom went from a team where they were 4 winners, like 4 raccoons in a sack, only the strong survive. Like, we're going to beat ourselves, and then once we do that, no one will beat us kind of thing, to, like, leading the 3 of us through that year, And, like, seeing him be both guys, it was pretty cool. And then the next year, we were a little, Carl was on there. He could really handle his own, so Tom had to do a little less ushering us around, but it was pretty cool to see that, like, just see these guys that are capable of so much be capable of even more that's not necessarily related to forging and shoeing horses, you know what I mean?
No, I think that's a huge difference in a lot of things. It's like not all of them have it. You know what I mean? It's like I think that says a lot for who Tom is and like that the understanding that he has of his trade, that he can just like take each freaking roll. Like no big deal. Like
I seen Bodie do that early on. One time Bodie had made the team and I was the second alternate in 2016, and Philip was going to go over to England and be in England and then go to Scotland and do the ferries contest. And he asked Patrick to go with him to be his partner. And I was like, well, I want to go. And Philip's like, well, Philip didn't want to work with me because, like, I'm a psycho, I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. I texted Bodie. I was like, hey, you want to go to Scotland and do the ferries competition? And he's like, for real? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's go over there. Philip and Patrick are going. We'll just jump in with them, We'll all rent a car and we'll just do it. And so we went over there for a week and did that, and that contest was so cool. Like, you're in this cathedral of our trade, the ferries shop, Like, you go in there and it's like a church, and all these legendary badasses, got religion in there or whatever. And the roadster shoeing in that thing was like you had an hour to put a 3/4 forward front on and a plain stamp roadster behind, and it was a 2-man
single.
Like,
it's 2-man.
Yeah, 2-man free for all. Like, anybody could do anything. You just had to get them 2 shoes on the horse. And Bodie was like fucking General Bodie commanding the go. You know, like, they say go. He started making shoes. I'm over there doing trims. Like, you know, my instructions were to start the foot preps, but like don't do anything unrecoverable. Just start getting them headed in a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Bodie's knocking out that Roadster. He got that front knocked out. He's like, hey, come clip this front shoe. Start fitting it. And he runs over there, finishes up the front trim, gets it flat, calls the judge. Judge comes to judge the front trim. I'm over there. I clip the shoe. I'm shaping it up. He's finishing the hind trim. I'm burning the front shoe on. He's fucking finishes the Roadster, fitting it on the hind. Like, boom, boom, boom.
That's sick.
And, I mean, we were fucking green, man. Like, Bodie had just made the team for the first time. I'm just, like, you know, tripped and fell into being the second alternate, and like we're over here doing this class, and like we ended up getting 5th place, and they called our names at the fucking banquet. You know, we go up there and get a card, and that was so fucking cool, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it was just 5th place. Like, you don't get you don't get much for like it's 5th. Like, come on, like, but for me and him, it was a big fucking deal.
I mean, you're across the world.
Yeah.
That's
it was
pretty
cool.
sick.
And
That's
but like, you know, Bodie was the leader. Like, he had this, and he's 6 years younger than me. Like, you know, I was 29. He's like 23. It was cool.
Yeah, but he's watched so many goes that he like kind of knows. He's like, at this point, things need to be happening. Like, there's like a certain like time in these contests where it's like you gotta quit fooling the fuck around.
Yeah.
And stuff are starting to start going together like pretty damn quickly.
I just wanted cool things to happen. I didn't care if he called me cheese dick, fuck face, retard, like whatever. And I didn't, you know, I mean, he didn't have to talk to me any certain way. Like, I want to go the direction that this can go, so let's go. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know. And man, those things are so cool. Like, you know what I mean? It's worth coming back home from Scotland having $81 in your bank account. You know, like just trying to figure out what you're gonna do. You know, like.
Yeah, being the life of a competition horseshoe right there.
Yeah. Yeah, the negative things they say, a lot of them are true, but fuck it, you know, like, you can't replace that kind of stuff. You can't, you know what I mean? There ain't no consecutive years of making $200,000 that's better than that.
No, man, and then it's like funny. It's like once you do decide to just start working and like have a business, it's really not that freaking hard, and like you already are a pretty good horseshoer at that point. That it's or like not like in our eyes not a great, or you know what I mean. Like we're never good in our own eyes, but it's like
kind of
to the general public, you can knock some horseshoeing out like pretty easy and do a pretty good job. So it's like through your whole competition time that we were on teams, were you running a pretty good business that time too, or just trying to like bare bones it so you could compete as much as you could?
It was growing. You know, me and Bodie talked about that on the phone the other day. Like, the hard thing about being a competitor is it's hard to compartmentalize it. Like, when you see another farrier at the gas station on the way to work, you want to beat that guy too. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, you want to do good at the competition, but you also want to shoe every horse that you drive past. And
it's the only reason I want to shoe into a boarding stable every once in a while, is just so people can see my shoe job up and down the alleyway.
Yeah. So as the business was growing, I wasn't really being mindful about it. I just was saying yes to everybody and shoeing as many as I could. And me and Philip, when I moved here, we were shoeing the horses for the Auburn equestrian team together. And then at the end of 2017, he got sick of that and left it to just me. And it's a big account. It's like, 60, 70 head of shoe-ins and go there every Tuesday. And it was a big adjustment for me to start doing those by myself. I did them with no help at all for 2 years, and that was nasty. That's how you know guys are full of shit, because like a day a week I was going and doing 8 to 10 full sets and 5 to 6 half sets. You get there at 6 in the morning and leave at 8 at night, and I'm like, all right, these assholes that say they do 15 a day are full of shit, because I know people ain't putting in this much. You know what I mean? Like, I know people ain't doing this. Like,
not to a high standard, anyways. Yeah, not to a high standard.
Yeah, the standard would have to be so low. Not alone, and the standard would have to be so low that like you might go do that 20 head, but that's the only time you're doing them.
It's almost like you can't bust out the forge if you're going to do that many.
Yeah, you can't. I never learned to shoe like that. Like,
Cold.
And you know how you are, like I'm morbidly curious about it, like, but I never learned the tricks to just slap them on, you know.
I fucking hate it if a horse doesn't take a burn because it's like it's hard. It's a pain in the ass.
I don't know how to get
See,
this to go on
I
here.
started in that. I started in the world of we had a 5-gallon bucket of rusty shoes, dude, and we were cranking them on there. Like they had to look like shit. I could not imagine to see a horse that we did when I was in like high school time.
What? I got a young guy coming
Horrible,
to
dude. Horrible.
There's a young guy coming to work with me some now that like that's all he's ever done, and he's a rodeo kid. Went to college on a calf roping scholarship. Super handy, punchy kid. Fast, you know, like he's done though. We're doing 20 today, all around, like get them done quick kind of stuff. And he wants to make shoes and you know do things like the hard way to make it nice, you know. And but I'll find myself being like, hey, tell me, you know, like.
Yeah,
He's wanting to know all this stuff from me. I'm wanting to know all this stuff from him.
Yeah, like how the hell do you do it that fast?
Yeah, it's just dispositionally when something's different. My first reaction anymore is not to be like that's bullshit. It's like, well, maybe what I'm doing is bullshit. Like, tell me about your deal. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'll tell you one thing: is those guys that are doing those types of horses, something they're really good at is horsemanship.
Yeah.
Is like for the most part, like that is one thing I learned riding with dudes. Like it's like learned how to handle a bad horse, and we got them done. Like it was just one thing I think they are very good at. Like
I watched Cole. Kid's name's Cole Harmon. I watched Cole watch me, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing something fucked up. And it's good, you know. It's good. It's like after a couple of years of not going to contests and kind of like not having that feeling like I need to live up to something that's standing by me again is a fucking great feeling, you know. Like I got that hammer from you, Riley. I went to work early this morning just so I could clip a bunch of shoes fucking before
was
the
it
shoeing
shit
started.
or did it work out
It's
okay?
badass, dude.
Okay,
It's fucking badass, man.
Like,
It's
man,
fucking
on the
sick as shit.
podcast, you're gonna call that thing out.
No, it's sick as shit, dude. When I saw it on the thing, I was like, I gotta have it because it reminds me of like your interpretation of that crazy ass cross peen Andy Reedersmith's got.
That
you know, that like
nailed
8-pound looking thing, you know.
Yeah, Michael Saunders made me a cross peen that's just like that. You know, it's like we all like. There's a few of us that learned how to make hammers from Andy, and like you can see it in our hammer making. Like, and
You'll
so
have to
that's
send me some pictures of them.
Yeah, it's a crazy looking little hammer, man. It's like you can tell like you can just look at those hammers of Andy's and like Michael's, and like those guys have hammer control.
Yeah.
Like the peen is so sharp and the hammer's so heavy that like
And
doesn't
you're
take
clipping
much.
like 3/8, 5/8 with it.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Damn.
crazy.
Yeah. I saw you posted it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get over here on this website. You can sign up for the notifications. I was like, I'll beat all those fuckers to the chase.
I appreciate it, man. That's like it's a cool thing when got like your friends and guys you look up to is like I came up behind you guys, you know, in WCB. So guys like you, Patrick, and like Bodie and stuff are like you guys were like the within my reach guys to look up to. It's like, man, I could be where they are next year. Like I just gotta like I could be right behind them. I just gotta keep rolling and just mimic what they're doing. So it's cool when guys like you want to use my hammers, or like Bodie uses one of my hammers, and like, man, it just always makes my day because like it's a cool pat on the back, like you were saying. Like I'm the same way. I like getting that little
An accomplishment.
Yeah, well, it's like it's one thing for a guy to be like, "Oh, cool hammer, bro," but it's like it's another thing that like Bodie's won a ton of shit swinging one of my rounding hammers, and it's like he's not using it just to make me happy and to like
He likes it. It's working.
Yeah,
it's
that
his
fucker
thing.
will not.
Like,
yeah, he will. You can give him a hammer and he will put it in the drawer and never look at it because I've done that, you know. But
yeah, all guys have, but it's
The
like
fact he
they
uses
can't bullshit you when they're hauling it
Using
with
it.
them somewhere, like, and using it all the time. So it is a good compliment. Like it always feels good to see someone actually swinging one.
well, that like it. While like it's been several years ago now, but I sent Craig a picture one time of the drawer where all my damn tools are in my van, and I'm like, I know everybody that made everything in here. Like
yeah.
every tool that's in here, like if my car broke down in that town, I could call that guy, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, that means more than anything, you know? That's cool.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool to think that it's all just been around that freaking trailer. Like all those guys could be at the same event at one time.
Yeah, you see everybody there. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
man, like, Craig knows what he's done, but I feel the need to tell him all the time, you know? Like, you crazy motherfucker, like, you don't understand. Like, you love competition, and you love you like watching a chicken fight, you know?
Yeah.
But you created lives. Like,
He gave
have
somewhere
taken
for us
lives that
all
were
to
going
go.
fucking nowhere, and they went
Yep.
somewhere because of that company, because of that
Oh, yeah.
venue.
His slogan says it all: education through competition. You
Yeah,
know,
destination excellence. All the slogans that he's ever had, like, you know, you just, like, I want everybody to see that motherfucker the way I do. You know what I mean? Like, you hear so many Craig horror stories. It's like, no. I understand. He brushed your hair back the wrong way one time, but, like, that's a good person.
Oh yeah, straight up. Like, and he's one of he's such an intelligent dude and he's such a good competitor. That's one of my favorite things about and still hungry. Like,
Well, you know, when he was
so
when he
hungry.
was, I don't want to, like, I'm going to interview him at the convention and all that, but, like, when he was young, he was a nutcase. Like, he would nut up and freak out. Like, he was a nutcase. Like, he was, you know? So, like,
I can relate with that.
it's been too long it was so long ago that none of us fucking got to see it. But, like, you know, the very best guys give so much of a shit that, like, when they first start out, you can't contain it all. The cup runs over, you know?
And it's easy to get somebody like, man, I guarantee there's people that do not fucking like me for the things I say on Facebook sometimes, or the things I've said like at other times. But it's like, it's just like you. It's like you were just passionate people about what we're doing, and it's like, well, I'm not intelligent enough. Like, that's something I can relate with Craig a little bit more. Is like me and him are just gonna pop off the top sometime and call somebody a fat motherfucker. It's like it's just what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? It's like, but like,
Well,
you are good enough. Like, well, I'm gonna put this in a better way where you don't even know I'm gonna insult you.
Yeah, well, yeah. You get the skills that you cultivate, but I'm glad those people say that shit on Facebook, though, because it charts them on the map. Like, okay, cool.
Dude.
I wasn't sure where you fell on the grid, but now I know. Like, thanks.
Dude, it's really funny. It's like, I bet people look at me and Jim Quick's relationship pretty weird. They're like, why is Riley still friends with I fucking love Jim Quick. Honestly, like, I love the dude. I love that he puts me in my place. Yeah. I love that he questions everything that I do, and I do not think he is ever questioning my skill or me. Like, he's wanting me to think. He is wanting me to, and like, the best part about it is he's rarely wrong.
Yeah, he's normally right as hell. Like, that's another guy whose approval I've been desperate for at one point or another along the way. You know?
It is a, like, man, dudes like him, or like, obviously, I love Jim Poor, but it's like Jim, you could still hand him a pile of shit sometimes, and he's still going to give you like a little drop of candy to keep you going. Where like, not Quick, he's going to slap you on the back of the head. You know, it's kind of but when he tells you you're doing good, you're like, all right, maybe I'm actually doing okay here. Like, I'm not sucking completely.
Yeah,
dudes like him and money. You know, it's like money's not going to give you a free little hall pass.
No, but money can be a really caring dude. Like, you know, he wants to know how you're doing, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It bums him out. I think that people are intimidated by him sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I know I have been. You know?
He likes to talk about stuff. Like, money he'll hold in a question for a long time. You can't wait to ask. You know what I mean? Like, he likes to talk about stuff. It's not just walking around being all hardcore money all the time, you know?
No, but he's never going to waste your time. Like, that's the one thing is, like, if money comes up and asks you a question, it's like, it's not a question that I try to answer him very quickly. It's something that's like, I'm going to try to put some thought into the answer because he really thought about the question. He tried to answer it himself before he came to
for
you.
sure. He wouldn't. you need to put at least as much time in the answer as he put into the asking, you know? Like,
Yep. I think that's good to remember with anything. It's like, man, it's you have like he taught me a lot of like giving clinics of like the beginning of his demos. He tells everybody, it's like, please try to answer your own question all the way through my demo, all the way to the end, because it's probably gonna get answered. Like, and you're gonna be more happy if you answer it yourself instead of asking me an empty question.
There's a saying I was told like pretty early on, like even when I was younger, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that order. You know, I think so many people could benefit just from that. You know, and so many people are just so quick to just pop off, but instead they could have just gotten it either probably just from watching or listening before they even open up their mouth.
Yep.
People are so bad about, let me ask a question that lets everybody in the room know how much I know. And it's like, hey, fuck you. Like, you already know what you know. Like,
Exactly.
shut up. Like,
Yeah.
don't you want to know what they know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, try not to be so interested in yourself. Like, give it a try, you know?
Yeah.
But I think kind of like what you were explaining, like when you were first starting out, like that's kind of what you did, right? It was you just shut up and you tried to take in as much as you could, whether it be from like Dusty, and then when you went to with the Critton guy, and you know you just took it all in.
Yeah, just
And it's important when you're first getting out your foot in the doors, you know, trying to soak it up as a sponge before.
yeah, and look for teachers and let those guys know how much it means to you. Like, you know what I mean? And then prove that it was worth it to you. Like, let your actions prove that it was worth it, you know?
Yeah, they weren't wasting their breath.
Mm-hmm.
So since now, like you met a lovely wife through horseshoeing, and you guys have a little girl.
Yeah,
So
dude.
that's kind of probably been eating up the last couple of years now it's like pretty easy to not compete because life's pretty busy, huh?
Yeah, we got together when I was in the thick of it, competing. And when you slam the brakes on all that and start staying home, like, you get to find out how you really feel about all the choices you made. It's like, you know, do I like this house I bought? Do I like this girl that I married? Like, now I'm going to stay home and we're going to see, you know. And it's been great. It's like, all right, cool. Like, this is what you were hoping was at the end of the rainbow, you know. And having a daughter is like everything everyone ever says it'll be, you know. All the cliches about parenthood and all is just so true. And this time, like, she's a little over a year old, you know. It's taken me a year to kind of figure out, like, how to act, like how to be, you know. But all this time is like, it's for you, because like she's not really probably gonna remember all this time. Like, this time's for you, so make sure you're fucking there, you know.
Yeah.
And like,
I think we as a dad too, we get eased into it a little bit.
yeah.
You know, softer than the mom. Like, we kind of get to like they're more clinged on to mom, need mom more than us. So it's like, but still, it's a big freaking life change all of a sudden.
Yeah, dude. The transformation for Joanna was instant. Like,
Yep.
and it's I'm lagging behind, you know. But it's really good right now, man. It's just so awesome. They went to Louisville with me to judge that contest for the Derby City thing. They're gonna come to convention for a few days. Like, you really start thinking of us as a us. You know, it ain't just me anymore. Like, I had a fucking too many years of it just being me. And what do I think, you know? And it's
And you
good.
guys met through competing at the WCB, right?
She went to Dusty's. I met her when she was going to Dusty's horseshoeing school. She was doing Dusty's for like 6 months or something. And man, she can shoe. It would piss you off, dude. She comes and helps me sometimes on Tuesdays at Auburn. Like, she don't practice nothing. She don't shoe horses every day. She could just like trim. And she has a hard time if it's not resetting my work, you know, like, because the anvil's not very forgiving when you don't spend time with it. But she can shoe, man. Like, that's probably why she don't shoe now, is it was always too easy for her. Like, she could just do it right off the bat, you know.
Yeah.
Wasn't a huge challenge.
Yeah.
So what does she do? So she comes and helps you on Tuesdays every now and again. What does she do outside of being a mom?
That
She's
takes up a lot of damn time right there, Gavin.
I don't know. I don't have kids.
she back in 2018, she got into going to this Orange Theory fitness deal. It's like a gym. It's a real prescriptive kind of workout thing, and she works there now. She's a certified personal trainer through the National Association of Sports Medicine or whatever, and she does
cool.
that. Like, she coaches fitness classes, you know, and she's a real natural coach, like real natural teacher, you know, and she can speak up and control a group and control a room, and she can do that, you know. It's all the skills I ain't got, you know.
Yeah, that is super hard to do. Like,
So do you foresee yourself getting kind of back into that mold of like competing again, or you just kind of maybe wait for your daughter to grow up a little bit before you kind of step back into it? Or
I'm going to go to some small stuff this next year, like some local things. That kid Cole that's working with me, he wants to get into it a little bit, but he's
it's almost
like,
hard to like give somebody that attention when you're not really
not
focused
doing
on it that much.
Yeah. So I'm going to do some of those little things so I can go do them with him. And he's opposite of me. I never gave a fuck about belly flopping into the mud puddle. Like, let's go. He kind of is one of them guys that wants to know what he's doing before he puts himself out there, you know? Ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, you get the little bit of that baby Michael Jackson thing when you just jump out there. Like, you know, the WCB watched me learn how to shoe horses, so, like, that comes with good and bad, you know?
Yeah.
I freaking bled one of Ronald's hunting horses down at Money's house one time on a back foot. The whole WCB team there is practicing. I took too deep of a nipper run and got blood sweating up out of the white line, you know?
they bleed bad when you get them with the nippers, man. It's not a little bit.
Oh, my
I had to, like,
God.
you know, Money puts on his shoe with a leather pad and all this shit, and I had to go up to Ronald with my hat in my hands and be like, "I'm sorry, sir."
Intimidating guy.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so scared. And I go up to Ronald. He's like, fuck it. Who cares? He can walk, you know.
You didn't break his leg.
Yeah. He's a long way from the heart.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, one of the nicest dudes ever, but he is like this like big presence of a guy. You know, you're just like, oh.
Dude, that whole crew of folks is just so, like, they just have a lot of confidence. They're sure about who they are. And when you're not, and you walk up, like, it's obvious that you're not sure, you know?
Oh, dude, yeah.
So, fuck.
Story of my life right there.
Dude, that year when we were at Andy Reader-Smith's in 2015 for the apprentice team, it was coming into that one that Roy Bloom was judging in Virginia that Carl was talking about, Carl's first one.
Bolt tongs or whatever.
Yeah, I had to make them bolt tongs, and Josh Hornquist was on the apprentice team with me, and he didn't believe I could make those tongs. I'm like, no, Philip showed me how. He's like, I know how to make them. He's like, no, you don't, dumbass. He's like, you don't know how to make those tongs. Like, that's hard to do. And I'm like, fuck you. So I get a piece of 3/8 by 1, and I'm going to show him, and me and Philip had a top tool for that swoop in to make the gooseneck, you know, like when you. And I'm looking around for something similar. I look over and Andy's got one of them Jim Poor trailer ball hitch hammers over there.
Yeah,
I'm like, hand me that thing.
Ball.
Yeah, so I put it up there. Josh rears back and hits it one time with a sledgehammer, and I'm expecting him to hit it again. And the hit's not coming. He's like, look at that thing. I look. His first blow, like I was holding it kind of crooked, and it caused his hammer to hit on the corner of the face, and it calved that bastard off like an iceberg, dude. Like, wrecked that hammer. Wrecked it. And I turn it sideways, it says WCBC Top 10 Calgary.
Oh, shit.
Oh, dude. My fucking ass could have walked into the ocean. Like, just started walking back to America and hope I drowned. You know what I mean? Like, just get me out of here. Like,
and speaking of talking about intimidating guys, dude, Reader Smith's huge.
Andy's out shoeing. Like, he left us in his shop to go shoeing horses, you know? And this is what I've done. And so, like, you can imagine how sick I am. Like, I literally went into the bathroom in that shop and just sat on the toilet for a while, like, fuck. You know, like, yeah. Why? You know?
And that's not a bathroom you want to spend a lot of time in.
No, dude, it's not. Like, it's not a comfortable place. And, like, he came home and same deal. Like, I was like, I'm like, Andy, I don't have anything to say. Like, the money can't replace this. Like, I'm very sorry. Like, I'll see if Jim will make another one you know, since it's kind of a one-off. But like, at least it's a milled hammer with some milled shit in it. Like maybe I could get it replaced. And Andy's like, don't worry about it, mate. I hate that hammer. He's like, the apprentices love it, but he goes, if you want, take it back to America and let Jim know that's what happens to his hammers, you know. And he wasn't talking shit. He was just making jokes, trying to make me feel better. But God, you know.
Dude, that is great.
That's what I said. I'm the Forrest Gump, dude. Like, you know.
When we were over there, dude, like you could tell we pissed Andy off so much in one day that like Andy left to go shoe and left us there, and like we couldn't find a certain stock, and like Chad was making these roadsters, and so like I think there was 1/2 and so Chad went and cut some up. Well, like, and we'd made some tongs that day too, and like Andy came back, and first he was pissed because we had used his only American 1/2 stock.
Oh.
And it was like this rusty shit, you know, on the rack. Like, but to him, that was like his one stick to practice with. Yeah,
like, making bevels or whatever for the classic. Like,
yep. And he was so pissed. Like, you could tell he was genuinely upset about it. Telling Chad, like, he's like, you need to go home and mail me back the stock you cut up. Like, he's like, that. I need that back. Like, there's no other way to get
serious.
It. Yeah, and then he went to go make a pair of shoes that like needed stud holes. And I had ground on his stud punch a little bit.
Oh, fuck.
When I was making tongs. And he hit it twice, and he just instantly like, who ground on my punch? And I just, oh, motherfucker, how did he know? Like, how did he know that quick? Like, it was just instantly, I was like,
2 hits.
I was like, I did. And he's like, it was perfect. This punch never needed touch. You ruined it. He's like, it was just, I felt like 1 foot tall for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, I'm no tool man. Like, I don't know shit about tools. I'm such an idiot.
That's when we were over there. He had us come to his house for breakfast every morning, and I'm like, we're in his house. Like, Jesus, like, why? I'm like, stop having us over here. Like, we'll just go to the pub or something. Like, come on, man.
Dude, and world's
having us
a
barbarians in here.
Like, we stayed at his house, and it was like you go to his shop, and it's a certain type of tidiness. And then you go to his house, and it's like very nice.
Yeah,
that is
it's
very
wife tidy
house.
Yeah,
it is a real nice place.
Yeah, right there.
I don't think we got to go to his house. They just cooked us breakfast on the barbecue in the shop every morning.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I get sick of all us weirdos in his house, you know.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, dude, don't want to take up too much of your time. We've already had you almost here on 2 hours. Like, we really appreciate you hopping on with us and spitting some of your knowledge and some of your experiences.
I've watched every episode so far, and you guys are natural hosts, and it's going to be good. So thanks for having me on here. Like, it means so much to me to be on here, and it's cool. Like, this is cool.
Yeah, man, we appreciate it.
You're natural. You're perfect for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever.
You just do all the talking for us.
Yeah, sorry. I got to yak in my trap, but, you know.
No, it's good. It's good. We'll have to have you on again. We'll dive in deeper into other things.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the convention, so maybe after.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to convention this next week, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm supposed to judge it, so.
Nice.
Oh, you're judging?
Yeah.
Fuck. That's two judges I didn't know this year.
Well,
I didn't know Patrick was
like,
judging the Fort Worth one either.
Lyle Shepard texted me. He's like, hey, you think if I came down, we could work on some convention shoes? And I thought he was just asking because I'm judging. I'm like, I guess. Like, I hadn't made convention shoes in a long time. I was like, I know one of the judges pretty good. And I was like, I used to work for one of the other ones. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Who's judging?
Didn't even know you was judging either.
No. I'm like, fuck it, you know. But.
Yeah. It has to be kind of weird though, because like if I'm talking to you right now, you don't put yourself in that place very easy to think that you're there. So it's like, you're probably pretty stressed out to do it.
The goal is just not to make it about you, you know. Let it be about the guys doing the work. So, and Ben Casterly is like, I had a man crush on that dude for a couple years, and then I used to work for McNerney a day a week, and he's a great mentor and friend, and so. It'll be cool. It'll be cool to just get to hang out with those guys, you know, judging the shoes and stuff. So,
well, kind of a question I got that's been brewing. as you've said, like you've kind of had these like downfalls or whatever, or mistakes you've made where you may have, beaten yourself up a little bit. What did you do? How have you gotten yourself to be able to like overcome that and still keep pushing forward? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's as simple as those words, really. You just keep pushing forward. Like, wake up, have an expectation for yourself that you will be better than you've seen yourself be, and like, I think remembering that the way you were thinking when you caused the problem is not going to be a good way to think to get out of the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got to not be afraid to say to yourself, like, I created this mess. You know what I mean? I created this mess. I take responsibility. Like, when things aren't going right, it's so easy to be like, all these things happened to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Start telling stories to yourself about what happened. Like horseshoeing contests. It's easy to start telling stories about fucked up judging or fucked up equipment or whatever.
Yeah.
Like none of that even needs to enter into your mind. Like, it's you. You're responsible for this. And that radical responsibility is what's like, if I've overcome anything, it's by being hyper aware that like it was my fault in the first place, and you just keep pushing forward. Like,
that's huge in anything in life though, man. It's like cool that you learned that through horseshoeing maybe a little bit, but it's like that can help in anywhere. Even like it's harder to do in other places, but
yeah, I just like in the heart of competing and traveling and trying to shoe horses and all that stuff, you just wake up with that extra vibration. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you got the jumper cables hooked on your tongue or something, You're just like, this has to fucking work. There is no plan B. I will not accept it if it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are some pretty good words to, cap this off with and, let some people chew on that until next week. That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
Awesome.
You asked me a question like that. My real answer is I'm not all the way over it yet. So we'll see, Like, it's a work in
but
progress.
I think it's better that like even you're in progress with it. So it's like you know exactly what's going on because you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's probably, man, when that ends, it's probably going to be the day you're probably almost dying.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I think
so.
of myself as well.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yep.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man.
See you down the road sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks,
Yep.
Wells.
Later.